And I would like to call to order the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency for August 10th, 2010. May we have roll call for the council, please?
Council members Draymond.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here.
And can we have a roll call for the agency, please?
Agency members Draymond.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Friedman.
Here.
Okay, may we have your report, please?
Agenda for the August 10, 2010 joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, August 5, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item?
Item before you is public hearing, Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding proposed development project for BevMo, Beverages and More, to be located at 200 South Brand Boulevard. At 1A is agency motion approving Stage 1 and 2 design submission, subject to comments and conditions from the city principal, urban designer, and the agency. 1B is a council motion approving a conditional use permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages and for on-site consumption, subject to comments and conditions of the agency. 1C is council motion approving sign variance based on findings and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Starbird?
Yes, Mr. Chair will go, or Mr. Mayor will go to Emil Tadavosian for the Redevelopment Agency. Actually, Elena Napoleon for the Redevelopment Agency. Elena.
Good afternoon, members of the council and agency. We're here today to present BevMo, also known as Beverages and More, who's proposing to locate to the building at 200 South Brand, which is the southeast corner of Brand and Harvard, directly across the street from Frida's Mexican restaurant in the Americana at Brand. As part of the project, BevMo is proposing some facade modifications, including new signage. 2 of those signs require a variance from deviating from the zoning code. A CUP is also required for the sale of alcoholic beverages and occasional tasting events to be held at BevMo. Given the urban location, staff closely looked at the conditional use permit, signage, parking, loading, and customer pickup. Before I get into these details, allow me to introduce Heather Myers from BevMo, Director of Real Estate, to tell you a little bit about the company. And once Heather's done, I'll be back to go over the details for the items for your consideration today. Heather?
And I'd like to open the public hearing at this point.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'd like to briefly go over who BevMo is and maybe more importantly who BevMo is not and give you some familiarity with our retail concept. So let's see here if I can get this to work.
Just roll it down.
Who are we?
Roll it down again.
We are an award-winning specialty retail focused on 3 main objections, which is superior selection, great service, and everyday value. In 2006, Wine Enthusiast magazine gave us a Retailer of the Year award, and just last year in 2009, we were given by Market Watch, a trade magazine, a great award for our management team. So what's so special about our selection? Well, we have 3,100 wines from all over the world. And we have exclusive wines. Last year, we started a new program called Vineyard Partners, which is exclusive wines. We have about 300 and counting exclusive wines that you can only buy at BevMo. So we have worked with different winemakers all across the country and the world to give exceptional value wines at a great taste that are only sold at BevMo. We have about 1,500 spirits in the store. We have about 1,000 beers, and about a third of those are craft beers. And we have 2,000 and more products, which is everything from cheese to specialty sodas that you can't get in a lot of the local grocery stores. We have caviar, crackers. We have our own brand of candies, chocolates from around the world, and we are also a large seller of Riedel glassware. So what about the service that you hear about at BevMo? Well, it starts with Wilfred Wong, who is our cellar master, And Wilfred rates and judges about 8,000 wines a year. He tastes internationally and judges at international panels. And he writes descriptions for each of our wines. So when you go into the store and you're looking for a cab, for example, you can see the points that Wilfred tasted this, and it's 89 points, and a brief description and possible help you with pairing. So we use his rating system, an example that we have on each of our wines. So in the store, when you go in, you'll see about 12 to 15 associates who we hire, hopefully locally. And green shirts means friendly service. And a lot of our associates go through educational classes on French wines, Spanish wines, etc. And then we have over 100 sommeliers on staff at BevMo. So the burgundy shirt means that they are a wine expert, so they can give you detailed information on wines and help you in purchasing your product. Taste before you buy. We do have in each of our 104 stores, 94 within California, a tasting area. It is a 10 by 10 separated area within the store. We do tastings twice a week on Fridays from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, on Saturdays from 12 to 3, and then on some special occasion holidays. There's no seating in the tasting area. It's educational in nature. There's a $2 charge for the tasting, and the tastings are limited to 1 ounce pours so that our customers can taste the product before they purchase it. Other things we do, we have pickup. You can go online at bevmo.com and you can fill out your order, pay for it online, and within an hour our store personnel will have your order ready to pick up. So you can pull up, in this case, this store behind in a BevMo loading parking stall, and our customers or our associates will load your product for you. We have in-store call boxes if you need any service. Or any questions on wine, associate will be right over to help you. So we believe we have service covered. Our founder, Steve McLaren, that was one of his big points for driving home. As many of you know, with the economy, our consumers are very worried about value, and so we are value driven. We have our Club Bev program, which is a free membership, a rewards program. We currently have over 3 million members, and 90% of our sales are to Club Bev customers. And I'll speak about that in a little bit on why that's important and our demographic and a typical customer of BevMo and what they look like. We're able to track this through our Club Bev program. So let's talk about who we are not. We are not a typical liquor store, nor are we a convenience store. And why, you may ask? Because we don't sell cigarettes, we don't sell malt liquor or fortified wines, we don't sell lottery tickets or adult magazines. And also, we close our stores at 9 p.m., so a lot of the riffraff that goes on in the evenings and after dark is one thing that we decided as a company that we didn't want to be a part of, and so we close all of our stores at 9 o'clock. We don't allow payphones outside of the stores. That tends to pull a consumer that we really don't want. We don't allow customers under 21 in our stores unless you're accompanied by a parent or guardian. So even if a child wanted to purchase a bottle of water, they would not be able to. Their parent would have to purchase it for us, and that's just one standard that we have done to set ourselves above and take seriously the nature of the business and keep everything safe. We do not employ any staff under 21 years of age. Everybody in the company is drug tested prior to employment, and we customer service shop every store every single month, and that's very important. The managers live and die by their customer service ratings, and we have a minor decoy program to make sure that we have a zero tolerance policy for selling to minors. So some ways that we would benefit Glendale and your community is we would employ 12 to 15 local employees. We would contribute significant sales tax revenue to the city. We draw customers on average a 16-minute drive time, and that's one of the information that we've collected from our Club Bev data, that on average our customers are willing to drive 16 minutes to get to a BevMo store. So for this store, we would be pulling from downtown LA, Los Feliz, Eagle Rock, Hollywood, and Silver Lake. So hopefully that will be some more revenue generated to the city that is not already coming to the city. We're a responsible neighbor. We are very involved in the community. Recently, we have helped with the Arts of the Ashes event and the closing event and donated wine for the city to enjoy. Last year, we opened our 100th store, and it was actually our second store in Torrance. So we partnered with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the South Bay, and within 2 days raised over $30,000 for that local chapter. So we're very involved in the community, and I would be excited to get involved in some community events and wine festivals with the city. I know across the street at the Americana, they have expressed interest in having us get involved also, and we are excited to do so. We also have a great record with the ABC. So why this site, you may ask? Well, it's the close proximity to complementary specialty retailers across the street, such as Barnes & Noble. We are to beverages what Barnes & Noble is to books, as we're a specialty retailer, and Brand Boulevard, and we're excited to be a part of the future Arts and Entertainment District, and it has a similar demographic profile and consumer. Our typical customer is 35 to 64, 50% women, 50% men, median household incomes greater than $75,000, and many of them are interested in arts and wine. So, and that's some of the data that we've collected from our Club Bev program. It's also a highly trafficked area along Brand, and there's great street presence and visibility, and we will be enhancing that, and Don, our architect, will be going over some of the enhancements, and we're excited. I think this will be one of the best looking beverages and mores we've ever done. Some of our, we have great locations. We just opened Santa Monica just a couple weeks ago, and we're on Wilshire Boulevard. We have our Pasadena store we've had, I believe, about 6 years now on Arroyo. We opened West LA on Santa Monica Boulevard just a couple weeks ago. We opened Studio City in June, and that's on Ventura and Laurel Canyon. And then we have our Manhattan Beach store right on Rosecrans. And that's just a few to give you a flavor of the locations in the immediate market. And we're excited to hopefully have a presence in Glendale, since our closest stores are Pasadena and Burbank right now. So that would conclude my presentation, and we believe BevMo would be a complementary addition to Glendale and Brand Boulevard. Dawn, did you want to go over some of the building and facade changes that we are proposing?
Hello, council members. I'm Don Inaba with Hayashida Architects. We're the architects for Beverages and More. And speaking with along the lines of the architecture of this building, if you could turn to page 3 of your architectural package, you could see that the existing building is pretty utilitarian, pretty nondescript windows and openings with a sort of a funny exit for the rear second-story tenants, the office space above us. We plan to change this building more in line with the Americana and the historic building across the street from Bevmore to be to match the style of architecture. We're going to accentuate the openings more, add some colonnades and a cornice at the rooftop, and add the balance out the feature in the rear of the building, so the exit for the second-story tenants can look more inviting, if you will, and also provide protection when it rains. We're also going to add awnings that we think more fit with the style of architecture in the area, and signage, which maybe if you have questions, more detailed questions, I could refer you to the sign person. But we're adding neon signs to go with the proposed museum of neon that's down the block. And that's pretty much it for the architecture. It's pretty straightforward. Like I say, it's a pretty plain building now, and we feel that we are making it more exciting and more in line with what's there now. Any questions?
Can I ask the architect a question? I have a question for the architect. Is there going to be an entry from the front, from the Brand Boulevard
Yes. the-
streetscape? Because so is that door that's on the far right, or is that for the upstairs tenants? Or,
The far right. There is an on Brand or Harvard.
on Brand?
No, there's no entry on Brand.
Yes.
Oh, there is.
We will be,
Oh,
we
I'm
will be
sorry.
retaining the existing.
I'm sorry, I got the.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, because
Yes.
I
I'm
couldn't
sorry,
tell
there
from the
is.
rendering. Okay.
Yes, the existing entry will remain as is.
I see we have a lot of people in the audience very familiar with the plans. That was the most
Yeah.
people responding to an architectural question I've ever seen in a development agency.
I got the streets mixed up, sorry.
Okay, and I have one other question, which is about the BevMo sign itself. Does that sign have to be the backlit box sign, or can that also be neon? Or is that part of your branding, that it be that exact
The sign above the entrance,
Right.
marking Brand, that is our typical standard corporate signage. And then we went with the neon sign on Brand and
Right.
Harvard. That will be the Blade sign. And then also on Harvard, the Rocket neon.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Draymond.
Since you brought up the signage, let me ask a question. I'm not sure I understood that answer.
Okay.
I understand the neon sign on the one wall and the BevMo sign above the entrance. I guess it's on Brand, which is sort of your standard sign. But the Blade sign is what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
Is the Blade sign? I haven't seen that.
Same question.
I mean, I've been to some of your locations, and I have not seen this Blade sign on the stores I've been to. Is that something, and is that what you were?
That's what I meant.
That's what I
Is
had a
that
feeling.
sign neon?
Yes.
Or can that, so that whole sign, it's not the backlit?
So that's not a backlit
No, that
fluorescent
isn't-
tubes inside of,
Okay.
plastic lettering kind of thing.
Exactly. The Blade sign on the corner and also the neon was actually requested by the city to keep in with the Arts and Entertainment District and the future MONA
Museum
to
of
bring
Neon
in that.
Art.
That's not something that we've ever done, but we're excited to do it and work with the city on that.
The reason I'm asking is, I'm sure the same reason that Councilman or Chair Friedman was asking, is that you can't really tell that that's neon from the rendering. It just looks like a.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, I just happen to be looking at the detail page on that, and it's a combination of both. It has neon incorporated in it, and it has what I'd say is fairly standard channel letters, interior illuminated, which would not be pure neon. So I think it's part and part.
Mr. Mayor and Chair Friedman, I think that the sign expert just walked up to the.
Yes.
She has a look of
Produced
steely
drawing.
determination in her eyes, and.
I just wanted to answer any questions you might have. This was specifically requested by the city and the urban redevelopment. We had our design department create an exhibit to complement the area. The sign itself is 5 inches deep, and it will have BevMo channel letters on each side of it. So the total depth, I believe, we provided engineering for you as well.
Right.
But the it will be a three-dimensional, it'll have neon on it as well as spacelit letters on it. So it's a combination of both.
Thank you. That was my only question at this point, and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to come back to that topic at some point when we're
And just to
discussing
let
this.
you know, their signs are LED illuminated. So it'll have the neon, skeletal neon as an artistic complement, and the signs themselves, the letters themselves will be LED illuminated.
Thank you.
Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, on the rocket sign, which I think's a great idea, I just hope that the 3/16-inch clear acrylic cover will be sort of graffiti resistant,
Yes, sir.
hopefully super hard.
Well, we will put a clear acrylic cover on it, and then we'll apply the graffiti film that they use for glass to this clear acrylic. It'll work the same way it does on glass. So
Okay. Well, I have a few questions or comments. Probably not for the sign person, though. I'm not happy at all the way this was presented to me. Not your presentation, but through staff. This is a significant location in the core of our downtown area, and I feel I should have had a little more opportunity to ponder the appropriateness of this location and the requested CUPs and other changes more than receiving it in my Saturday packet. In a way, and I hate to use the word, in a way I feel that I was ambushed on this. This is a significant location. It is a significant use, a use that I'm not entirely comfortable with. This is, by BevMo's own admission, they are a superstore. And I'm not sure that a superstore for wine and liquors is what we need directly across from the Americana and in a few square block area where we are pouring so much of our time, our attention in terms of planning and making sure that it's the very best for the future of Glendale. I would have liked to have addressed those concerns with staff weeks ago, where staff could have walked me through this and allayed some of my fears, perhaps. But that wasn't done. Staff, was hurried over to the management services offices today to try and answer some of my questions and explain the project. I have heard from others in the community, one of them being representatives of the Americana themselves, who did not know that you were going across the street, who did not express the enthusiasm that I think you represented earlier. They have asked that this be put off, and they have a chance to think about this and see what the implications are, being directly across from their project. I've heard from members of the Downtown Merchants Association who also feel that they were not aware that this was going downtown and the exact location of the 200 South Brand. They have asked me to put this over. Please, can you delay it a week or so? In good faith, I through working with the city manager, he did everything he could do today to try and get my questions answered. But the point being that I don't think there has been adequate outreach to the public. This isn't just a regular store going in. This is a store that I think changes the complexion of that area, where we're really looking for a different type of retailer. And I do have, substantive issues also. I've visited some locations. I don't think that BevMo has a location where they only have 7 parking spaces dedicated on site. Most of them are in a different location, a different type of setup where there's tens and tens, if not hundreds, of parking spaces out front. I think parking is a question. Are the patrons going to wish to park in the Marketplace garage and walk that block over? Are they going to be familiar with the, as I learned this afternoon or this morning, the call-ahead program or the order online program where the wines will be actually delivered to your vehicle wherever you may be parked. When I was in Pasadena, the times I've been to that BevMo, you've got a line of a line of shopping carts out front, not attractive, that are actually chained together with an iron chain. I don't think that's attractive. I don't know if that's being addressed in this plan or not. There are concerns having this store so close to the library, so close to our park, and additionally to the winter shelter where there's homeless people through several months of the year who seek consolation, and sometimes they look for warmth, perhaps in greater warmth than a wool blanket might provide them. I don't know. I just wish I had more time to look at this and answer these questions, because this isn't just approving a sign to me. This is something that is going to change the face of our downtown. I don't know if those are questions. They're really not questions that you can answer, but I'm just concerned at the way this was brought forward, and I think staff should have known this was not an insignificant presence in our downtown area. Mr. Draymond.
Let me ask: have we closed the hearing? I mean, is there more? Is there public any?
I don't have any cards from the public.
Okay. Because I would like to make my comments if we're at that point.
I will not take any. At this point, I will not take any cards from the public. Do I need to close the public hearing? There may be questions that develop, however.
You can keep the public hearing open or close at this point. If it's council deliberation, closing the public hearing or keeping it open really doesn't have any substantive
I
impact.
was merely asking for procedural reasons. I don't. If I may, though, I'd like to make my comments now. Thank you. Well, let me start with some process and procedural comments about process and procedure. First, I take what Mayor Najarian has mentioned about those issues very seriously, and I think that regardless of any of this, we should, as we go forward, take a look at that, making sure that redevelopment staff is speaking to all of the council members so that people understand. Very often when the chair, vice chair get into discussions as potential projects come forward or opportunities come forward, there aren't the opportunities to go immediately to the public or to the newspaper because they're just discussions, or there are issues from the standpoint of the potential business coming in, the business entity, where we simply cannot go out and discuss it with the public at that point. In the past, what we have done is to make sure that staff can brief the rest of the council on at least some of the general issues, so they know that these things are in the works and so on. So I think we need to afford every courtesy we can to our colleagues to make sure that on the agency, to make sure that this problem that was just addressed doesn't occur again. And so I know that as vice chair of the agency, I will personally make sure. I know that Agency Chair Friedman, I'm sure, agrees with that. We will make sure that kind of thing continues. And I take some responsibility for that because it was my assumption, Mr. Mayor, that this was occurring. This project began before this current configuration of the agency and the council, and I simply assumed that those briefings were ongoing, and clearly they weren't. And I have a feeling that as Councilmember Friedman became chair of the agency, she may well have assumed the same thing.
I told them to cut the mayor out.
Did you? Okay.
Just kidding.
How about Mr. Weaver?
Well, no, I'm talking about agency members across the board, not just the mayor. I'm just referring to, Mr. Mayor, you brought up the issue, and I want to make sure that everyone is brought up to speed on these things. That's just as a matter of process. And for this council member and agency members' money, it's also a matter of courtesy. So that I just wanted to get out of the way right up front. Let me see. The issues about this that I think are important to me have to do with, if I can go a little broader in my topics than just the sign itself and the CUP. I think this is a very important opportunity for the city. It brings employment, it brings revenue, It brings a very high level of customer service in a traditional retail setting to our downtown. And please understand when someone like me with a background of representing a very large retail center for as many years as I did, when I say traditional, I don't necessarily mean the product being sold, but when I talk about traditional retail, I'm talking about customers walking in the door, purchasing a product. It is not an entertainment venue. It is not retail vis-a-vis food service. So it's a traditional retail environment, and with a very high level of customer service. That is a good addition to our downtown. Also, BevMo, to my understanding, just listening to the radio, I'm a sort of radio wonk, and they bring a high level of advertising, both print advertising and other media advertising, which is very beneficial to Glendale as well in our downtown area. The demographic that shops in BevMo is exactly the demographic that we are seeking, particularly the end closer to the 35. I'm sorry I have escaped that bottom number of the demographic by quite a few years, but at heart, I still feel like I'm close to the 35-year-old demographic, don't you, Mr. Weaver?
Sure. Times two.
Times two. But in any case, it is absolutely the demographic that we are looking for our arts and entertainment district, and in many of the stores, if not most of the stores that are in Americana, the Glendale Galleria, etc., the tax revenue is another that is going to be of benefit to us. This will be a far more dynamic use in terms of those elements that I've just mentioned than the present use of the space. So for those reasons, and not to negate any other points, pro or con, those are very, very positive benefits for our city. Also, I was very impressed by the gentleman who, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, the gentleman with the blue shirt and the sport coat sitting there, who I met initially at, not knowing that he was connected to BevMo, at the opening of Art from the Ashes, who mentioned to me, my gosh, this is really an incredible art opportunity, cultural opportunity in our city. We should be very involved in this, in helping to promote this. And that's when I said, well, who are you? Who is the we you're talking about? Oh, well, I'm with BevMo, and this is a wonderful opportunity for our city. We should try to help. So you don't have to convince me about BevMo's interest in investing in our city, trying to help promote the beneficial aspects in the city. I've been to a number of your stores. I certainly know that this is not a corner drugstore, a corner liquor store, rather. This is not indigent people lingering around the door. This isn't a flophouse clientele. This is more along. I was trying to explain what BevMo you came up with. This is the Barnes and Nobles of the beverage retail industry. I was thinking of more like a Office Max or a Staples or something like that, as opposed to, say, your corner stationery store. It's a great and terrific retailer. I'm very happy to see you coming to our city. In terms of the signage, love the neon. It's exciting, a lot of fun. The corner blade sign, I'm very happy to see us begin to have some blade signs on the corner, and I am going to support that. I wish there were more neon to it, to be quite honest with you. I wish there were more neon to it and less of the traditional sort of channel backlit. I appreciate the fact that it's LED, but I wish there was more neon to it. I wish there was more neon and more animation to the neon. But that's just, I'm just one agency member. Not just because of MONA, Museum of Neon Art, coming to Glendale just down the street, but also because I just think it's it's a better asset to our downtown retail area. Love what you're talking about doing with the building. It is a very utilitarian building. This will provide a better access for the upstairs tenants that is more attractive and more interesting. I like the awning structures that are here, and I like the design of the building overall, the changes. And I think it'll be a terrific complement for the downtown. And for the rest of my colleagues, I guess would be very happy at this point to know that I think I've reached the end of my comments. I will be supporting this, both items.
Mr. Weaver.
Thank you.
Well, this isn't a BevMo. It's policy how we're operating. I, too, was totally blindsided when I opened up my packet Saturday to find out about this. Evidently, it's been going on for a year or more, and I've known absolutely nothing from anybody on the staff. I've sat here 14 years, and this is the first time I can remember being blindsided like this. Redevelopment Agency used to act as an agency together. It's not happening now because I'm not knowing anything and the mayor isn't knowing it. That is wrong. I didn't bring it up on Monday because I wanted to air it out here. Questions on parking. Who's the upstairs tenants? What's going on? I know nothing. I'm hearing from the mayor that certain groups want it delayed so they could know about it. Why are we being so secretive, even to colleagues on the agency? In my view, this is a wrong way for this city to operate. It never used to be that way. Not for the 12-plus years, never. And now all of a sudden it's occurring. Everything that has happened on Mid-Brand since I've been here has been fully discussed beforehand with staff, what's opinions. In 1.5 years, I've had one briefing by Redevelopment. And when I said I didn't like this or this or this, I was told, well, we better brief Mr. Weaver when he's in a better mood. Wrong, man, wrong. How can I go out and defend this when I know nothing about it? I met on another project just yesterday. Same area, asking questions, getting input. This, no input at all until today, and I'm supposed to either vote it up or vote it down. Well, I won't vote either way. I'm abstaining on it until other groups have a buy-in on this. It's not about BevMo. It is about location and what is going on. 12 to 15 workers. Where are they going to park? 7, 8 parking spaces. Oh, 2 shifts? What about all the customers? Oh, they can go over to the Maryland Garage and park? I've been in Lambs Plus. Lucky to have 4 or 5 people in there, including the workers, at any one time. That's going to dramatically change. We're already hearing about the problems at the new ARC taking the spaces in the library parking spots. Where are they going to go now? It's never been easy to park around the library to begin with. Now you bring this in. There's a banquet hall just down the street from here. I used to work with them extensively. They plead with me, how can we work out a deal so we can get some parking spaces for our banquets? I don't know where they're parking, in the Maryland Street Garage or whatever. Parking is at an extreme priority there. And I don't see anything on what the parking requirements are. Is it the same as Land Plus? Thank you. That's what I gathered. And I don't know how many that is. How many? Somebody on staff knows? It's non-conforming. And now we're going to bring in a business, legal non-conforming, and now we're going to bring in a very successful company that is going to require a number of spaces. And where are they going? Well, who cares? They can find their way. They are coming in. Possibly we ought to be looking at 30-minute parking in front. Because people that go in there aren't going to dine, they're going to shop and leave. I don't know. There's nothing here. In my view, we are operating incorrectly in this city by staff and by my colleagues. And I will not vote for this today. Absolutely not.
Friedman?
Well, as chair of the redevelopment agency, I will take responsibility for my colleagues not knowing about this, not because I tried to keep it from them. I sort of assumed that they were briefed by staff, so I apologize to my colleagues. Believe me, there was no subterfuge. I do know that sometimes businesses don't like the public to know what their plans are because they're out trying to bid on property, and if it gets out there that a BevMo's interested, then I think they're sometimes afraid that the landlords might jack up the price. So sometimes that's the reason the public isn't told during one of these meetings on television. But certainly there's no excuse for the other members of the redevelopment agency not to have had more of a heads up, and I'll make sure that that happens in the future. But I do hope this doesn't scare away BevMo, all of this fuss. This is more of a procedural thing internally than it is, I think, about BevMo. So I apologize for that. In terms of the parking, I understand the concern. I have another concern, which is that if we are going to, not with BevMo, but with the idea that we shouldn't put a successful business in that space because it doesn't have a lot of parking, we're sort of condemning a building to being empty or to have an unsuccessful business, which doesn't make any sense to me either. I've lived in very urban places. I've lived in New York City. I've spent a lot of time in urban locations. I've gone to Pasadena to shop at the storage store. What's that store called that has absolutely Container store, where you do have to walk to a public lot across the street, and they handle it by when someone goes to shop there, you go and get your car and they meet you out front and shove the thing in your trunk. I do want to ask someone from BevMo just to comment on this and what your plans are in terms of the parking, something that I think was suggested at some point, and I'm not sure if it was conveyed to you, was the idea of doing some sort of a delivery service from BevMo to the various lots, including Americana and Galleria, which is something that, for me, would be very important. What I don't want to see happen is that someone is shopping at the Galleria, goes to BevMo, buys a case of wine, and then feels obligated to go back, get their car, and then drive it to Brand. I think that would be a real problem. So is there a way that there can be some kind of a delivery service where you walk people to their cars, even if they're at Americana or Galleria? And have you had that kind of outreach yet with the owners of those facilities?
John, do you want to come up too also?
There's a couple of things.
Give us your name for the record, please.
Sorry, John Palmatier, Regional Vice President for Southern California. We do have a couple of stores that have limited parking spaces. In La Jolla, we have one that has, I believe, 6 to 8 parking spaces. Between the time that's actually spent in-store shopping and our traffic patterns, which really traditionally are more nights and weekends, we really do believe that at this particular site, with the additional 11 spaces that are currently used with the office, the additional street parking spaces that are on Harvard, as well as the parking structure that's really just a half a block behind us at the marketplace. If we add the pickup parking space, which will only be for pickup, that would be for online orders, as well as anybody that's at the Americana shopping, anybody that's parked at the marketplace, anybody that's shopping really almost in a 2-block area of this site has to use those same parking facilities. They will have the ability to make that purchase. We'll hold it, and they can use that parking spot that's designated for pickup, and it'll be very manageable for us. In addition, folks from the Americana, residents, we did talk with the Americana, and we do feel that there's a great opportunity to work with concierge there, where we, the store personnel, could deliver for the residents there, walk it over to the concierge, and they can help deliver. So I think there's a lot of different things that we can work with.
When did you begin speaking to the Americana about the project, since there's been some suggestion up here that the Americana didn't know about this, or else they would have come here? How long have they known about the project and the proximity to their space?
The director of specialty leasing at the Americana contacted me a few months ago and actually offered me a space on Brand in Colorado at the Hard Corner. And unfortunately, the space did not work for us, but they were excited to have BevMo come to the Americana, and the space didn't work for us. So I did let them know that we were looking adjacent on Brand. So that was probably, I'd have to look at emails, but 5 months ago or so. And I met with them today, actually, and discussed collaborating with them and how we could work with their residents and taking deliveries and their valet.
I'm sorry, who was that? The director of?
Director of Specialty Leasing. Doris is her name.
In the condos. Is that what you're talking about, or the retail?
No, for the retail leasing.
So what if somebody asks to be helped to their car in one of the lots? Do you do that, or will they have to bring a shopping cart out, or will they have to avail themselves of the space? How does that work? And where is that space? Is it on Brand, or is it on Harvard, that loading space?
It will be behind where the existing Lamps Plus parking is. There's existing 8 stalls. We would lose 1 stall for ADA, so we would have 7, and one of those stalls just immediately behind the building will be labeled BevMo Loading.
Okay.
And then we will also utilize the 11 stalls in the evenings and on the weekends when the office tenants are not there.
Okay, and then, again, what about helping people into the lots with purchases? Is that possible? Do you have the manpower for that, or no?
For store associates?
I think we would be able to, and which lots, I think that we can help to Marketplace, probably over to the Americana.
Or they could leave their product at the store and swing by, an associate would come out and deliver the product directly into their car.
Right.
If it was too much, to carry.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to finish my comments, and then it's okay. Okay, thank you. I am concerned about my colleagues not knowing about this. I'm not against continuing this for another week. I will support it, whether I support it today or next week, but if that's the preference of this board, I would entertain that. In terms of the neon, I agree with Mr. Draymond that if that blade sign could be neon rather than the LED, I think it would be a much classier looking sign. Those backlit channel, I don't know what you call them, those backlit signs sometimes tend to look, a little bit more, regular, I guess, a little bit more common. I think the neon would be something a lot more special. And also, I looked at the landscape plan for the parking lot, and I think you may have some opportunities for a little bit more greening of that lot, more trees rather than shrubs, that sort of thing. And I would encourage you to work with our urban designer and see if we can green that up even more. I do feel better about the loading, knowing that it's in that lot in the back and not on Brand. So I could see that really being a problem. But again, if we're going to have a successful downtown and a successful urban space, we cannot require every successful business to be fully parked. I mean, that's a suburban model that doesn't work in an urban downtown. So their store, if the parking is really a problem, people just won't shop there. And I hope that doesn't happen. I don't see that happening. I've been to enough urban places where people have to make do with what they have to think that it will work in our downtown. And I think it could be exciting. Certainly it's a much livelier business, a lot more people coming and going than Lamps Plus, and that's what we say that we want. We say we want successful businesses. We say we want more people, more feet on the ground. And if this becomes the closest you have to Hollywood and Silver Lake and Los Feliz, and hopefully you won't open a store there, I think that would really help. It would help the Americana and help bring people to this area. So I think it's a project that we need, and I'm glad to see you coming here. Thank you.
Mr. Quintero.
Okay. Well, I haven't had any contact by anyone, the staff, or I haven't had any formal presentations or heard from the downtown merchants. However, I guess through osmosis, somehow I found out that there was a BevMo coming to Glendale. And when I did, I actually, a couple of days later, I happened to be in what they call a power center. There were Lowe's and in Burbank, there along the 5 freeway. And I kind of looked over, and all of a sudden I saw a BevMo sign. And so I went over to the BevMo store, my first time in a BevMo, and I was extremely impressed. Very, very impressed. It was probably 11 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and right away someone, I don't remember if he had a green shirt or a purple shirt. I'll look next time. But anyway, someone approached me with a designated shirt, and I asked for the selection of Spanish wines. He immediately took me over, and it was by far the largest selection I've seen on the west coast of the United States, outside of one or two specialty shops that specialize in Spanish products, etc. But anyway, I was very impressed with the selection, and not only the wine, and I'm not a drinker, so I know very little about hard liquor or anything else, beers, but just the fact that they had that many choices of this particular country, I was very impressed. I then walked around the store to sort of look at the concept, all the other products that that BevMo sells, very upscale. I actually asked the gentleman taking care of me where the company was from and was it publicly traded, who owned it, everything about it, and he filled me in. He was a very knowledgeable employee. He filled me in on the growth of the company and so forth. So, well, let me just say in general that I don't believe that it's good for a city or staff or anyone to pick and choose retail. That never seems to work. When it's an artificial creation where a city or a public entity has to subsidize, has to do this, has to do the other, to me that just doesn't work. BevMo wants to come to this location. They're paying the freight in terms of the rent. They're redoing the building, et cetera, et cetera. And in this economy, I think it's a plus. Do I think that this is the perfect corner for BevMo? No. I actually wish that they had chosen another location on Glendale Avenue or on Colorado or on Central, whatever. But they're the retailers. They're the ones that know where their business should go. So if they've chosen this corner, then I assume they think it's going to be a success. And if it's a success for BevMo, it's obviously a success for the city in terms of the type of people that'll come to shop there, the tax, et cetera, et cetera. So if they choose this particular location, then I'm fine with it. In terms of the homeless situation, they perhaps were not aware that that may be an issue, specifically in the winter when the shelter is open, the National Guard shelter across the street from the library, so they're going to have to take measures in the event it does turn into a nuisance. But there's certainly other liquor stores in the surrounding blocks that I assume that some of the homeless may gravitate in that direction. In terms of the sign, I'm very happy that we're going to have that neon blade sign, and I hope that in fact we do incorporate some LED usage. I mean, LED is obviously the future in advertising. When you travel to other parts of the world, especially Asia, you see LED displays that are just beyond comprehension. I think LED with a neon, if the company, if BevMo were willing to spend the money, the design team, I'm sure, could come up, they can refine the design and come up with something that's really going to tie in to the Museum of Neon Art. Backlighting with LED, I don't believe that's going to make much of a difference, but actually incorporating LED and neon, I hope you work along those lines. I think it's a great idea. Then the BevMo box sign, I find it's very generic, and I think it really detracts from the building design. I think the architect's done a wonderful job. The current Lamps Plus facade is totally dated and certainly in need of a rehab, and I'm very, very happy with the design, from the back stairs to the awning, the facade, everything. That I think it's going to be a great addition, and it will work with the historic building across the street. But I hope corporate will somehow let you do something other than the BevMo box sign. In terms of parking, it is going to be tight, I predict. But all companies, when they're faced with the growth, the normal retail always seems to start with suburban locations, and then eventually they start moving to urban design or urban locations. So I think, obviously, in some of the places you mentioned in West LA and so forth, obviously the company's going to have to deal with this parking issue. But overall, we're trying to create a urban center here along Brand Boulevard with our arts district, et cetera, et cetera. So, like Ms. Friedman mentioned, I mean, we just can't keep counting parking spaces and saying, oh, this works or this doesn't work. I mean, we're trying to get a downtown going, or trying to add and enhance the downtown. So we have a huge parking structure nearby that obviously some of the people will use. And as part of our general plan, we are working on that alley between the library and this location, and that alley that goes all the way to Colorado. So hopefully we're going to be able to accommodate some of the shoppers and some of the green needs that we need. I do think you need more landscaping in the parking lot to enhance the field and the feel of the location. So overall, I am for the project, and I'm ready to either vote today or wait a week, whatever the rest of the authority wants to do. But I welcome you to the city of Glendale. I think you're going to be very, very successful in that location.
Mr. Draymond.
Fortunately, I think when you do open your doors, the public will be far less internally conflicted over process and other things than we've been today. So in any case, just to address a couple of things. One is so that my colleague, Ms. Friedman, as chair, doesn't fret too much over this. When I was elected to this council, I landed here on the dais without any I was vice chair of redevelopment at the time, and I had no clue whatsoever, was not briefed, not told by my colleague who was the chair at the time, nor staff, nor anybody else about any number of projects in this area. BJ's was one of them. I found out about it through my normal packet. Panera was another. The Mega Shoe Store, that was another. There's whole bunches of them. This isn't that unusual. What is unusual is that about not long after that, we did start a process of trying to brief other agency members. Councilmember, not mayor, then Councilmember Najarian has requested briefings. Obviously, he didn't get briefed on this, or he wouldn't have the comments he had today. Mr. Quintero has had briefings with Mr. Lanzafame in the past. Obviously, not on this, but so it has been a process that has been there. The other thing is, I'm equally mystified about this notion of Americana, and I can help you with the date you're talking about. I met with both Mr. Lemo and Mr. Caruso in April of this year, and both of them raised the issue, amongst a million other retail issues in the project area, of BevMo. So they certainly knew, and this was publicly noticed. So there's no secret here. And as a side note, I'd also like to ask redevelopment staff, if I may, I would like a list. Well, Mr. City Attorney, does perhaps does the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association, do they receive funds as a merchants association from the city, as like Kenneth Village merchants do, or Spar Heights, or Montrose?
They do. Yes, they do.
They do. Okay. I would like, as a matter of information, it's come up so many times, to know, is it possible to get a list of who the actual members are? Not just the number of members, but how many are actual members of the Downtown Merchants Association, how many members are on their board of directors, and who they are. I would like to know specifically what businesses are members of the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association. I'd like to see the full list. Because every time that's asked, we hear numbers that vary from, there's 12 members or 30 members to hundreds of members. So I'd like to know that also. Just as a side note, at some point when it's convenient.
We'll do that.
And lastly, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make I'd like to make a motion to see whether it will carry, but as a housekeeping issue, I was curious, Mr. Mayor, 1A can, or maybe Mr. City Attorney, if 1B and C can be taken together as one motion, and then 1A as a separate motion? Okay. But I will not make a motion until the public hearing is closed. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I do have a question before we get to the motions. We have a member of our police department, Lieutenant
Davies is here. Steve Davies.
Could you come forward, please? I don't know if you were listening to the discussion, but the representatives of BevMo said they're not going to let anyone under 21 years old inside the store. What is the best way to enforce that regulation?
From the police department's perspective, obviously they're going to have to look at everybody's ID. I don't know what their store policy is. Do they have somebody at the door checking? Like a club type of scenario? Do they wait till the person goes up to purchase, or can they blatantly tell? I know I look close to 21. Would they card me going in? So that, from my perspective, that would probably be the easiest mechanism. They, listening to what she had said previously, pardon me, but I don't recall her name, but she said they had an internal, spoofing program where they obviously see if people are underage or not. Similarly to what we do in the police department, where we send folks under 21 attempting to do purchases of alcohol. So it sounds like they have some sort of mechanism. Curious as to what it is, because that was something in my mind, a question. How do they know if somebody walks in, if they're under 21 or not, and then do they turn them around? So that would be a question in my mind.
There's quite a few youth in that proximity going and coming to the Americana.
There's a lot of people, a lot of youth that hang out at the marketplace in the Americana area.
Well, let's ask the representative from BevMo, how do you plan on enforcing that? You're going to have someone at the door checking IDs, or all I want is this bag of chips? Why are you asking me for my ID?
There's a couple of things that we do, Mr. Mayor. We have signs posted at the entrances. Our employees are trained to approach customers from a service perspective. We card all customers who appear 50 years and younger. If you are...
Where do you card them? At the register or at the...
time of purchase, if there's an alcoholic beverage involved, at time of purchase, they are carded. We also use the Viage machines, which are to test the validity of the ID. We have also a training program that teaches our employees to approach anyone within the building if they don't appear to be 21 and ask for ID. If it's an obvious child or they are under 21, we ask where their parent are or guardian, and if they say it's on the other side of the store, then we ask to, and we join them with their guardian or their parent. We do not allow anybody to make a purchase, even if it's a bag of pretzels, not 21. The parent or guardian has to make that purchase. The ABC is very satisfied with the way we run this, in conjunction with the 2 times a month shop that we do, where we pay an outside company that actually performs that for us to ensure that we are in compliance. And we've had 100% compliant.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm contemplating contacting the ACLU on behalf of some of the teenage... no, just kidding. That's very interesting. I never heard of a sort of policy like that.
Mr. Starburn.
Mr. Mayor, on the issues raised about process, as your executive director, I'll take responsibility. Laura and John, you don't have to carry that on your shoulders. I've already given directions to staff to make sure that we initiate briefings with you so you can be brought up to speed on anything out there that you may not be aware of, and that we take steps to give you at least monthly updates on everything from initial contacts that may go nowhere to those contacts we may be doing more substantial work with in terms of locations. My apologies.
Well, here's
Yes.
my issue on that. How does, other business owners in the area, as early as April, I'm not sure what year, April. This year, April, become fully aware of what's going on, and I am in the dark. I mean, I can't really appropriately express my disappointment that it has come to this stage. And I'm not sure what the best way is for me to express that, aside from a no vote and take my whip out and whip these poor people from BevMo who are putting forth a plan. I mean, it's just unacceptable. I know we've spoken about it, and we understand that there's changes coming forward, but I would like to hear from community groups that I'm not sure, that maybe don't know. I've heard conflicting stories as to who knew and who didn't know. Chamber of Commerce, downtown merchants, and I just can't help from walking away from this meeting as feeling that this was, I don't even want to go there and use the adjectives in the description, but needless to say, I'm very unhappy with the way it happened, and I don't want to use, those words of transparency and open and all that other stuff that we hear from the gadflies time and time again, but needless to say, I'm unhappy.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I can, on the issue of transparency, there are times when we're contacted because the nature of the real estate transactions and business transactions, we're requested, and frankly, it's not appropriate for us to go out and make the world aware that somebody's in the community may be discussing with a building owner a potential lease that may affect an existing business. So frankly, we have to juggle, and you would have to juggle if you're aware of it, when something can be made public and when it's inappropriate for something to be made public. You do have this whole public hearing process where people receive notices. Obviously, that isn't what we want to rely on completely, but there is a point in time at which, let's just take this case, at which if BevMo was willing, we obviously could have done and maybe should have done more outreach on that. We certainly should have made you aware and can make you aware, because we can expect you to keep a confidence of all of the dealings that we have at every stage, whether it's just a conceptual contact with maybe no further follow-up, or whether in the case of BevMo, something that they bring to us as an interest later on blossoms into a specific site. So with a little bit of defense for the staff, we do at times get torn between, what we can release publicly and when we can start talking about something in the interest of both the prospective tenant in the building or purchaser and existing businesses and landlords. But obviously we have to do a better job. You have certainly made me aware of your frustration and disappointment over this one. All I can do is commit to you that we will try and improve it and do better.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Draymond.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion, and either it will carry or it won't. And, that's pretty safe assumption, wouldn't you say? I'll move the item at 1A.
It's an agency motion.
That's the agency motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call. Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian,
No.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Abstain?
Sheriff Friedman.
Yes.
I'll also, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll move the item at 1B and C for the council.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Abstain?
Mayor Najarian.
No. Next item, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Weaver.
one thing I'd like to request from staff, I'd like to know number of parking spaces in the Maryland Street garage, how many are obligated to the Glendale Marketplace, how many for the Armenian Center that's being built, and any other ones that have assigned spaces in there. I think that includes Hollywood Production, How many already pre-assigned before we start talking about the library and the general public? So if you please furnish that to me.
Mr. Starbird.
We'll be happy to provide that. As I recall, when we dealt with the Amides and then again with the ALSA, we did the update of the spaces that have been subscribed, I would call it, because none of those agreements provide for exclusive use of parking. So essentially, they can utilize it, but it's on a first-come, first-served basis depending on demand. The same would be true for BevMo.
But we did that on every single one of those projects. What is the capacity of the garage and how many unassigned spaces are allotted? We didn't in this at all.
We did. You're correct. We'll provide you a copy of that report.
Did in this?
No, I say we did on those projects you mentioned.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I want to refresh myself, but I'm talking about this project. It doesn't have adequate parking because it's grandfathered in.
Right.
But you as well know as I, there's going to be more people coming to that store because it's successful. And where are they going to park? As you know, behind Pardo's and Damon's, people won't walk a half a block to park in the Orange Street garage. They want to park right behind it or they won't go in. Only people parking down there are the people that work in Pardo's, who works 24/7.
True.
And in this location, we have a banquet hall that operates in evenings and weekends. And the lot behind those buildings, it's always full. And there's another banquet hall across the street that uses spaces. And I know that I tried to get the use of the lot, of the Chamber of Commerce lot for somebody, and they put a chain up to prevent anybody from going in. So parking spaces there are going to be at an extreme premium to get. I don't know how it's going to work. Wish them best of luck, but people being human nature the way it is, if they can't park close, they're going to take a hike and go somewhere else.
And Mr. Mayor, Mr. Weaver, my personal view, having been down there as much as you have, is to the extent that there is that kind of pressure for parking, if BevMo is successful, I think BevMo is very much a destination retailer. I don't think you necessarily drive by and think, oh, I've got to stop in at BevMo and see what they've got on sale. I think they're mostly a destination retailer, which means that people, I think, will take a little more inconvenience in their parking because they know they can walk a block or a half a block, they can order their goods, they can then pick them up at the store, as opposed to just the drive-by. But in the end, that will force more people to the Market Street garage, which I think
the discussion,
capacity.
the discussion is over. It was a request from Mr. Weaver to update the parking issues.
No, just to refresh me.
To refresh the
Short memory
parking
up here.
studies that were done with the subscription of the garage, and I think we can have that done.
We'll do that.
Is there a motion?
Well, just as chair of Redevelopment Agency, I want to welcome BevMo to Glendale. I think you're going to kill down there.
Is there a motion to adjourn for the council?
Did we
So moved for the council.
Or is there a comment?
Yes, we did.
Oh, I was just going to add that I hope we have, I anticipate we will, I hope we have the kind of impact that's being suggested here because one of the things we are missing right now in that spot is retail trade. Thank you.
There was a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Council's adjourned.
Motion for the redevelopment area agency to adjourn.
Agency is adjourned.
Was there a second for that?
See everyone at
Thank you.
6.